I'm with Lesley Seary, Director of Customer Services at the London Borough of Lewisham. We're at the local Insight conference today run by the IDA. You've just given one of the plenary presentations about Lewisham and Total Place. Can you just give us a quick outline of where you were, how the project started really, and sort of what you identified at the beginning of the project in terms of duplications and gaps?
Well, Total Place for us in Lewisham built on a lot of work we've done previously around customer insight and built on a very strong local strategic partnership. And in two of the particular areas we picked, looking at worklessness and at offender management, we found that there were both big gaps but also duplication. So, for example, in worklessness, we would find that people were doing the same basic CV writing course 4 or 5 times, but nobody talked to them about whether there was an underlying issue, perhaps around health or childcare, which was why they weren't working.
And how have you used the customer insight idea to get further information about these services?
What we've tried to use, we've previously used films, and we find that's quite a powerful way where you get people to tell their own stories. And almost in a kind of fly-on-the-wall documentary type approach. So people telling their own story about their experience of interacting with different agencies gives quite a powerful insight to how people's experience is of using services.
And you've also, in terms of actually designing the services, you've involved some other agencies there as well.
Yeah, we've done work in the past where we worked with an organisation called the Public Office, who have made 6 films about different service users' experiences, and we brought together the chief executives, leaders, directors of the main partners in our strategic partnership: health, the police, fire, the voluntary sector, the PCT, and we sat down with them and looked at some of these stories, and they're very powerful. We had one for a young girl called Victoria, and Victoria's, at the time of the film, was 16 and had severe learning disabilities, and Victoria's parents had become experts in how to understand the system because it was so difficult to get the information from the agencies, but were concerned because Victoria was transitioning from being a child to being an adult, and they were fearful that they were going to have to start all over again explaining Victoria's circumstances to a different set of social workers, a different set of hospital staff, a different set of primary care trust people. And I think it's when you sit and listen to that that you suddenly realise that however good you think your services are, they just are not focused around the needs of the individual and the user.
And one of the other topics was to do with offenders, and some of these concepts really aren't that difficult, but simple things like the release of offenders on Fridays. Tell us why that's important.
Well, it's this kind of, you do it and you think this is not rocket science, but all the research shows that the most critical time period for an offender being released is the first 12, 24, 48 hours, because that's, if you're coming out of prison and you have problems with perhaps substance abuse, you're homeless, you don't have a job, that's when you need the support mechanisms to really kick in quickly. And of course that's obvious to everybody, but then we find that most prisoners are released on a Friday, and you're heading to the weekend and none of those support services are readily and easily available. And you kind of look at things like that and you just think, as I say, this is not rocket science. Why can't we get these things right so we're reducing the risk of reoffending?
So where now? Where does the Total Place project go now?
Well, for us, we've obviously completed our submission to the CLG, and we wait to see perhaps next week's budget and the announcements around that, what will happen with Total Place. Meanwhile, we're continuing to develop these ideas as far as we can on a local basis and look to see how we can improve services locally for people. But there are some issues which Leslie Korkoff spoke of this morning, which are more systemic, which actually require leadership at a central government level to change some of these things, because we don't control the prison service and we don't control the justice system. So it needs to be local government working hand in hand with central government to really deliver some of these changes and to drive efficiencies out of the system and to improve the service for people that are using it.